We've now got the month of the Canon EOS R6 announcement, but we also have information about a prime lens to be announced alongside the camera. It's one we've been waiting for since 2019. Details coming up, but first, I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Now that Sony has announced the A7R5, the Canon marketing machine is busy teasing for the upcoming announcement of the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. The successor to the popular R6 will be announced in late 2022, according to Canon rumors. It's really good to know that the Canon EOS R6 is going to be announced this year and that we actually have the month now. And I'm going to give you that in just a short moment, but what's also of particular note that we're going to cover off in this video is that we're getting a prime lens that we've been waiting for since 2019, that's been rumored for since 2019, and it's one that many of you are keenly excited about. I think it's safe to say that we'll be seeing the Canon EOS R6 Mark II alongside the much anticipated Canon RF 135mm f1.8 L-series image stabilized USM, announced sometime in November of this year. In a span of just a couple of hours, we've gone from the Canon EOS R6 Mark II being announced, confirmed, well, almost confirmed, that should be announced in 2022, to now knowing it's going to be November. And if you watched my video from earlier this morning, you'll pay careful attention to one thing I said, and that was, if we are getting the R6 Mark II announcement this year, it's most likely going to be within the next couple of weeks, and that puts it squarely in to the first half of November. First half of November, second half of November, December. Well, December doesn't make any sense for the reasons I stated earlier, is that there's so much going on in December. We have Black Friday at the end of November. We also have Thanksgiving. So the last week of November doesn't make any sense. And even the second last week of November, people are gearing up for Thanksgiving in the United States. That's a huge market. So you got Thanksgiving. We're getting into the Christmas season. And this happens in the US. As soon as you switch over from Thanksgiving, the very next day or later that same day, all the ads for Christmas start up, things get really busy. You might get a week of business in December before things just go absolutely crazy. And you know what I'm talking about. Just everyone's focused on Christmas, on preparations, on invitations, on family, on getting presents. And even at work, everything is about preparing for the next year, is winding things down or parking things so that way when we boot back up in the beginning of January, that we know where we're going. So November is when we're going to be getting the announcement, and I'm still willing to bet that it's going to be the first half, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to get the announcement of the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. But what's truly exciting here is the announcement of an L-series lens, that elusive 135mm. You'll recall that the EF 135mm was an f2.0. So this being an f1.8 is a little bit wider, a little bit faster. It is image stabilized, it's a USM, and of course it's an L series. So I really love this focal length. It kind of reminds me of it's right up in here. I think this is it here. Yep, this is the 100mm f2.8 macro. I love this lens, but it's like a gimbal or a drone. No, it's more like a drone. It only comes out, I only take it off the shelf about maybe 3 to 5 times a year. It's a beautiful lens, beautiful optics, the lack of chromatic aberration, and even the focus breathing is rather minimal on this lens. But that 135mm, you see, whenever I think of that lens, I think of street photography, or I think of war correspondents or reporters, where you're trying to capture something, a portrait or a scene, without being part of the story yourself, where you can snap the shot without people being aware that you're there. And of course, it works for portrait photography, especially shooting outside. Even f4 can give you an incredible blur in the background, but stepping it all the way to f1.8, f2, f3, this is a lens that we've been talking about for so long, since 2019, 2020. In fact, in the last couple of years, there's been very little talked about it, and I get very few questions on it anymore. But whenever I do bring it up, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion regarding this focal length. And the great thing about the 135mm RF f1.8, well, it's not just a gift for the R6. It'll work on the R3, the R5, even the R7 and the R10. It's a gift that keeps on giving across Canon's lineup of R system cameras, and I'm really excited to see this lens. Sadly, however, I think it's going to cost a lot more than this guy here. I think it's going to be priced somewhere north of where the 50mm f1.2 is, but a beautiful, beautiful lens. Now, going back to the R6, we have it in 3 SKUs according to Canon rumors. There's, of course, the body alone, but then it's going to be paired with a 24-105 f4. I've got that right here, the f4 with a video lens hood on it, but also the f4 to 7.1. If you're thinking of getting the R6 or the R6 Mark II and you've been looking at getting the 24-105, I highly recommend it. It's a really good lens, and one of the things this general purpose lens gives you is all those important focal lengths. So 24, 35, 50, 70, 85, and 100 millimeters. Of course, you can dabble in between, but I just love that you've got those primes represented here. And you can play around with them enough to determine whether you want to spend the really excessive money on a 50 millimeter f1.2, or maybe you just use it once in a while. But the reason to get the 24-105 f4, first of all, it's weather sealed. The f4 to 7.1, not weather sealed. Why get a camera that's weather sealed where you put a lens in there that isn't? You're not protected. The 24-105 f4 gives you f4 throughout the entire focal length. So whether you're shooting at 24 millimeters or 105 millimeters, you got better low light performance out of this lens. So I know it costs quite a bit more, and yes, it's gone up significantly since when I bought it. I bought this for about, I think it was 1,100 Canadian, so around $800 US. It hasn't quite doubled, but it's really gone up there in price, just gotten very, very expensive. But the f4 is my recommendation, and even if you can't afford it, you can just afford the body alone. I highly recommend just waiting and saving up, because if you get the 24-105 f4 to 7.1, I guarantee at some point you're going to feel a certain sense of buyer's remorse. October's been a very busy month, well, at least the second half of October, concentrating on the Sony a7R5. We've been getting leaked specifications about that camera almost every day, including on the weekend, including Fridays. Normally a very slow time when it comes to rumors. And here we are, we're starting to pick up on the Canon EOS, I always want to say M6, but the R6 Mark II, a successor to the R6, which was announced and released back in July of 2020. But just as we saw with the Sony a7R5, almost daily leaks coming out on this camera, I expect the same here with the Canon R6 Mark II. So if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors, and this is already the second video today on the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, as well as a new prime lens, I highly recommend subscribing, but also choosing all notifications. By choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a video like this one here, you'll get notified by YouTube, so that way you can stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. I know when you have a busy day, it's tough to follow all those Twitter feeds, let alone say it, RSS feeds, your favorite websites and YouTube channels. I have it all right here. All the major camera news and rumors, all on The Ordinary Filmmaker, all covering all the major brands here at one point. So please go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications. One last thing before I sign off though, I'm planning on doing a live stream today. That is, unless we get any other major news between now and then. I don't know exactly when this is going to happen because today is a rather busy day for me, but I would suspect if I'm doing a live stream, it's probably going to be sometime between 6 and 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that's about GMT -4, -5. We're still on daylight savings time, so that's Eastern Daylight Time. So around 6 to 8 p.m. tonight, we're going to talk extensively about the Canon EOS R6. We'll also talk about the Sony a7R5 and whatever other questions you have about this channel, about camera rumors, or anything else. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.